Joy from Joyquilts. Today what we're doing is a quilt that needs to have the design masked around, basically, which means that we're going to be going around embroideries and the computer will be told where not to stitch so that it doesn't stitch through the embroideries on this quilt. First thing we had to do was figure out which design to use, and you can see at the top of the screen we've done that. So we picked Swirl Paisley Triangle. So what we've done is we've placed the triangles across the top and then mirror imaged a row, slid them up to the top ones so that it looks like it's completely filled and it's now become a large rectangle. So that's going to give us the desired effect that we want. The next thing to do, this is a large quilt, and I will show you in the next video on the quilt, you'll see what I mean. It's a large quilt and it's got a lot of embroidery and triangles and all kinds of things going on in it, and we don't want to stitch over those different components. So what we're going to do now is treat each section, each rectangle, as its own quilt. Just makes it easier in the long run because sometimes the piecing is a little bit smaller than in other places, and the embroidery can kind of pull it in a little bit too. So what we're going to do is set our safe area. So I'm going to go to the top left corner of this particular quadrant and then down to the bottom right quarter. Basically it's about 9.5 inches by about 80.5. It's going to vary a little bit with the quilt because, as we all know, quilts are not perfectly square or straight. Okay, so now we've got this set in with the safe area designated. The next thing we're going to do is called masking. So with masking, what you do is you can either go inside the masked area and delete your stitches, or outside. The default is inside, which is normally what we're going to do. We're going to take the actual machine and we're going to tell it to mask, and we're going to tell it to create a region that we're going to mask or remove the stitches from. The process is pretty much automatic. You can check it. It's pretty hard to tell whether you've done it exactly right. But what you do is you will ask it to go to the sew head. You take the sew head and you start to click and it'll go set. You set every quarter inch, half inch, depending on, because this is a flower, I'm going to go around the ridge of the flower and back to the other side of the stem. And then I'm going to click preview, take a look, and it's going to show me what I've masked out. And then I'm going to click check mark, and then it's going to mask that area. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it over to the next flower, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to go mask, create region, set all the masking around the embroidery, and then preview it and click OK, or the check mark, and it's done. So this particular row is going to have 3 embroideries masked. That way we will have no quilting inside the embroidery, which is exactly what we want, but the actual design, that Swirl Paisley, is going to remain intact except for around that flower. It kind of will look like it's just skirting the flower. Once this quilt is done, I will take it over to the 880, and with the stitch regulator I'm going to go around each embroidery on the edge, because that will really help to define it, because we can't get too close because we don't want to overlap the stitching. So that's basically the process, and now we're going to get going on the quilt, so I will do the next video on the quilt.